Okay, good evening, everyone. We're going to get started with our meeting. Carly, if we can have the roll call to call the meeting to order this time. Thank you.
Joseph Benedetto.
Present.
Anne Marie Knievel.
Present.
Joseph Chow. Joseph Chow. He's there.
Mr. Chow, I think you're present. Just let us know that you're here. Okay, we'll come back. I saw you earlier.
Yeah.
He's present in the chat. He's having trouble with his mic, it seems.
Got it, okay.
Thank you. Wing Yu.
Present.
Donna Tayeb.
Present.
Sung Young Lee.
Present.
Michelle Frederick. I just saw Michelle.
I'm here. Present.
Hi, Michelle.
Mohammed
Joe.
Hunain. Mohammed.
See Mohammed.
I'm here.
Okay, and Edith Rubenstein. She's not in here. She said she's running.
Okay, I think she's running late, but so we connect, we can do whatever business we need to do. I welcome everyone and I thank you for your patience. We're gonna start, we have a pretty busy agenda as we usually on the screen. We're gonna start with the approval of our February minutes, and then we're gonna move on to our SCA public hearing portion. Okay, so the council members should have
Hold on for a second, right?
last month's minutes before them.
Yes.
Mr. Shaw, you're raising your hand, did you co-host it? Mr. Chow, Joseph?
Sorry.
What's in the chat?
Just him saying he can't hear.
Right there.
He's unmuted.
Mr. Chow, you're not muted, so you can speak.
Joe, maybe come in and back out. Not sure.
What does the chat say?
That's him. He's just saying he can't hear.
Okay. Does everyone else hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so if everyone has the opportunity, the council members, to review our minutes from last month, we need to get them approved, or if there are any changes, please let us know.
可是我 speaker 没开。
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Because I was on the not on speakerphone, that's why.
So, do I have anyone's opinion on whether or not we are okay to approve February's minutes?
I'll make the motion to approve the February minutes.
Okay. And I will second the motion. So welcome, everyone. Mr. Goodman, I'm assuming you're here?
Hi, Joe. Yes, I'm here.
Good to see you. Okay. So we have like I said, we have a busy agenda this evening. We're going to start off with our SCA public hearing because Mr. Goodman has good news to share to us. There is a new primary school site that SCA has located at 13731 45th Avenue. And Mr. Goodman wants to start with the public hearing on that. So just that the public knows, usually SCA has its first public meeting with CEC, and then they meet with the community board, correct? Mr. Goodman?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm going to give you the mic or the floor, and you can start with your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I do apologize. I'm having a bit of trouble opening up the actual presentation, but I'll walk folks through what it is, and hopefully this will come to pass, and then the presentation will load. Okay, Joe, as you mentioned, we are going to start site selection. As of now, this is the public hearing for a new public school. It's approximately 696 seats located in Flushing. And one second, I'm so sorry, PowerPoint just stopped.
take your time. I mean, I'll just continue it while you do that.
Ben, you
So,
want me to share it for you, Ben? You want to send it to me?
Actually, I think I got it.
Okay.
Okay, so let me.
Excuse me, this is Joe Chow. Can I just say I'm present? I had trouble.
You're
turning on-
present, we got you. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
It's okay, you never interrupt.
Okay, so I just need to share my screen, and then it looks like the presentation then is good to go.
Okay, are you able to share your screen?
Try again, Ben.
Yes, thank you.
Yep, you got it.
Okay, thank you very much, Joe, for hosting us here this evening. This is a site selection hearing for 137-31 45th Avenue in Flushing, and it's between Colden and Casina. So this is the notice of filing. I do apologize. It's in legalese, but I'm required to read it into the record. So pursuant to section 1731 of the School Construction Authority Act, a notice has been filed for the proposed site selection of all or portions of block 5145, lot 90 and other nearby sites for the construction of a new approximately 696-seat primary school in Queens. And again, it's located at 137-31 45 Avenue. It's on the western side of 45th Avenue between Colden and Casina in Flushing, and it's currently vacant land. So the site to be acquired by SCA on behalf of the DOE is approximately 70,000 square feet, which is approximately 1.6 acres. So the plan and the supplemental materials that summarize our proposed action are available at our headquarters in Long Island City on Thompson Avenue. And if you're looking for them there, you could speak to Ms. Kelly Murphy, Director of Real Estate Services. It's also available on our website, nycsca.org/community/new school sites. It's under community and then under new school sites. I will put this in the chat. And folks have the opportunity to submit comments either by postal mail or to email or by email at sites@nycsca.org, and will be accepted until April the 6th. So we are required to present new sites both before the local community board and the CEC before moving forward. So that 45-day public comment period on the proposed new site began on the 20th and it goes until April the 6th. So at this point in time, we don't own the site, but we will focus on the site itself. We don't have any design details to share at this point in time. So the sub-district where the proposed site is located is within Flushing, Murray Hill, Willets Point, and there's about a seat need of 1,000 seats as per our February 2023 amendment. And we're again proposing an approximately 696-seat primary school with a District 75 component. And the process includes analysis under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SEQRA, and then that's done before going to the City Council for final approval. This is vacant land. This is an aerial view of the vacant parcel that's at the site now, and a view from the street. So this to give folks kind of an idea of where we're talking about, just north of the Queens Botanical Gardens by Q237 over here, also on Colden, in addition to located nearby PS 22 and 24. So this is my contact information. I'll put it in the chat as well. And comments are open again till April the 6th. Our DOE contact is Reba Lichtenstein, who can assist with more information regarding zoning or other educational aspects of the proposed school. So that brings us to the formal end of the presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
So Mr. Goodman, I'm gonna start, just, the 696 seats, that's primary meaning K through 6?
Pre-K through 5.
Pre-K through 5, okay. And there's a District 75 component, is that inclusive in the 696?
Yes, it's
Or-
inclusive in within the 696.
Okay, my understanding is that 45th Avenue at this location is a one-way street. Does that
Mhm.
raise any concerns with SCA and, you know, the parking on both sides? And what happens if there's the bus drop off? Is that something that, I'm assuming you're gonna get some resistance from the community board on that?
So that's a very good question. We work closely with our colleagues at the Department of Transportation to find the best routes for schools for the students to arrive. So during the course of design, we will look and at the site in particular and work with DOT to see how they feel that, if any changes should be made, if they shouldn't be made, and what's the best way to facilitate, safe and efficient pickup and drop offs.
So I've been in touch with the community board, and I understand you may have had a meeting with the committee, and I think you have a community board meeting scheduled for March 19th, March 18th.
Yes, I believe we're going before the full board around that date.
So the CEC is never going to say to SCA, we don't want schools, because especially in our district, we are in need of seats. But I'm assuming the community board is going to want to know from you. First of all, they always appreciate that SCA gets feedback from the community board. And I guarantee you, they're gonna ask you questions regarding the parking. This is a big site, it's 70,000 square feet. So I'm assuming you're gonna have room to make like an inlay for the bus to drop off students. They're also gonna probably ask questions about parking. Are these things is it too preliminary to ask you questions about these things?
Yeah, those things are very, very preliminary. Just to note though that on-site parking is something that we don't provide because that would then take away from the space that's available for playground and recreational spaces.
Do you know how many stories the building will be?
No, not at this time, and that'll be determined once we're in design.
Understood. Okay, so I'm not sure if any other council members have any questions, and then we'll go to the public.
I have a question. This is Wendy. What's the approximate, do you have how much this whole project will be? Or is this is also too preliminary to ask?
At this time, we're anticipating an opening of September 2027.
And what are you approximate the costs going to be?
So the cost we don't know yet because we don't own the site as of yet. And then the cost would be determined, once we're in design to see how much we anticipate the construction cost will be.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions for Mr. Goodman? If anyone in the public that's here has any questions, I'd ask that you raise your hand. And I'm going to continue. So, Mr. Goodman, we also, the CEC also received the amended capital plan yesterday. And I'm just wondering, because I went through it and it was quite lengthy. There are certain items on page C9 and C10 that I really don't understand, but I'm not sure if this project would be, if the public knows if this project is included with that capital plan. I think it's not, right?
Correct. It's not as of yet. If the project is approved by the city council, it would then be listed in the plan, likely the November 2023 amendment. It's just not listed because we don't own the site as of yet. We're in contract, but we haven't closed yet because the closing, is just the closing can't happen until it's approved, hopefully by the city council.
I understand you have to go through the public hearings and you have to go through community
Exactly.
boards. That has to be, that has to happen. So if you don't mind, I'm jumping around a little bit, but I'm looking
That's okay.
at the capital, the amended capital plan here, and I'm looking at page C9, where it makes reference to our district. It says project number 2, and I don't know if you have it in front of you, Mr. Goodman?
I don't, I can open it.
Okay, if you don't mind, because it's
Sure,
making
one
references to
second.
like capacities.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at page C9 and C10. Are there any other comments?
No, that's all, that's all.
Are you there?
I'm here. I'm just waiting
Okay.
for the computer to
Oh,
load.
okay, fine. So like I said, I was looking at this and I was, obviously we're concerned with District 25.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the PS 169 edition, the PS 32 edition, we spoke about that. But there's like other references to projects and they have numbers to them. And then they have like seat capacities, which are new to me. That's where I'm going at with my question.
Okay, hang on one second. I've got it open. You said page C9?
Correct.
Okay, one second. Okay, 17, 14, 10. Okay, here we are. So there's, yes, so there's
You're not able to
C9.
put that up there, right? Just for the public understanding.
Yes, I can. Hold on if I can.
You mind?
Yes, sure. One second. Okay, so yes, so there is.
So on
I'm on
page
C10.
C9,
Oh,
okay, go to
C9.
the prior page,
Here we are.
and towards the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
you see where it says project number 2, District 25, project number 4. So I mean, I'm seeing 865 and 451 total capacity, right? And
Right.
on the next page, which is page 10, it goes project number 8, another 600 seats. But
Right.
what is that referencing? And
So within the particular sub-district, and I will go and take us to that page in one second. There's 2 sub-districts within District 25 where we have a seat need. Hold on one second. I'm going to pull up the page.
it's a big document and it's sometimes difficult to understand.
Yes, no, I completely agree. Okay, so here's where we are for these 2 districts, or 2 sub-districts rather. There's Flushing, Murray Hill, Willets Point, where the proposed school would be located if it's approved by the council, and there's 1051 is the seat need. There's also Beach Church, College Point, Whitestone, where there's additional seat need, but we do have some some new school seats that are in construction. So those 3 sites that are listed in the plan are placeholders. So that
those
so
are
that
like
the
projected.
right, so they're projected. So it's not cut and dry that each site has to fit within those parameters of the seats that are listed. It is what we determine is needed, and kind of looking for a way to give our best estimate as the ideal seats or ideal sites we can find. So we can go over, we can go less, depending, as it is difficult to find sites, especially we know within District 25, a standalone site like this. So those are the placeholders
Understood. So
for
this
the sites.
project, this 45th Avenue project, right, that you have for 696 seats,
Mm-hmm.
this would fall under what, project number 2, I'm assuming, or?
Hold on, let me check. I'm not sure. It likely would be the one that was labeled as a 2027 opening.
So that would be project number 2, right?
Right, right.
Back to C9, it says 865 for September 27.
Right. I mean, that would likely be
That's what's projected. So even
right.
though you're saying this is like a 696 seat capacity, even though we need 865, we're still gonna be short, I'm assuming, correct?
Right. We would be short for the sub-district, but we would continue looking.
Understood, okay. And then,
'Cause-
I don't wanna, I'm not sure if any other council members have questions, but I know that I have some questions regarding the existing project, like the Water's Edge project. I'm not sure if you brought those plans with you.
Yes, I did.
Okay, great. But before we go there, I'm not sure if anyone else in the public has any questions or comments for your public, hearing requirements. We understood it's in the chat regarding whether or not people have to file something in writing, but if anybody has any questions for you, now would be the time, correct?
Correct.
Okay, does anyone here have any questions for Mr. Goodman regarding this proposed new primary school site at 45th Avenue? No questions, okay. So then we will move on. Mr. Goodman, if you, I'm curious to see what you have in terms
Sure.
of the existing projects.
Sure. So
Right?
yep, I'm going to share the screen so we can take a look through the floor plans for the new school located at 2350 Water's Edge Drive. This is a 547 seat primary school with 96 District 75 seats included. One second, I'm just going to share my screen.
So that the public understands, this is something that's already done. It's the SCA purchased the property and they're starting construction, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so, and the plans that you have, they're not final, are they finalized?
They're not completely finalized, but they're close.
Okay, because I drove by the site, it looks like the land's been cleared out, right? They removed all the brush, the plants, whatever, and like leveled off, but I haven't seen anything else started there. But
Yes.
I'm assuming you're still on target, correct?
Yes, we are still on target. One second, let me just pull up the plans here. So this is the site plan of how, imagining if taken from a plane or a bird's eye view, so to speak, of what the site would look like. So we're here in the intersection of Water's Edge Drive and 24th Avenue. This is the outline of the building with a rear play yard on one side, and then next to that is the ECC play yard, early childhood play yard for our youngest students. So this is the entranceway here into the new building with additional covered play right off the entranceway. I just want to quickly just let folks know this area here labeled crawl space, that is one of the resiliency measures for the building as it is within an area known for high flooding.
So the entrance is not coming off of Water's Edge, it's actually coming, the entrance is not coming from the street, right? It's.
Right,
looks
the
like it's
entrance
on the
would be set back
Okay.
within on Water's Edge Drive.
Oh. Got it. So that's gonna, the entrance way, I'm sort of talking to Superintendent Domingo, I'm assuming it's gonna be similar to the 169 entrance, which is covered, right?
Yes, I will check on the covering. I know that the covering does extend over here. So the entranceway is set back a bit. It's not right up against the lot line. So it is set back.
Okay.
So
We're looking at the first floor, so in other words,
yes,
the crawl, there'll be no school on the first floor,
no,
correct?
there is it wouldn't be at ground level.
It would not be at ground level,
No,
correct?
it would be it's gonna be higher than ground level. So on the first floor of the building, this is going to be for the youngest students, the pre-kindergarten classrooms, as well as the principal's office and the administrative suite. The building will be fully accessible with an elevator, and the parent and community room will be located on the first floor as well.
So again, you're calling this the first floor, but it's not street level, correct?
Right, exactly. So once Joe, once we have renderings we can share, I think it might be a good idea if I came back before the CEC to give folks a different idea, like a more of an idea of how it will look.
Yeah, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, because it's a bit difficult to explain without giving folks the opportunity to see it as a visual.
Okay.
But so I'd be happy to come back on with that when they're ready. But continuing here. The second floor is going to have the student dining area with the kitchen complex. This will be the floor for the District 75 students with the District 75 office, occupational and physical therapy rooms, as well as the classrooms, multi-purpose rooms, and resource rooms.
So basically, this floor is for District 75, except for the student dining area.
Correct, correct. So the third floor will have a gymatorium on this wing here, in addition to the exercise room and the guidance suite.
So when you say gymatorium, are you combining the gymnasium with the auditorium?
Yes. This platform here refers to a typical platform stage in an auditorium, and then it will have mechanical seating that go off. So the space can be flexible, converted both to an auditorium for performances or assembly periods, in addition to using it at other times as a gymnasium. There will also be a second or separate rather room here as another flexible space as for an exercise room, which will be located by the guidance suite. This floor will have grades 1 and 2 in addition to the third grade. There's also a teacher's aides workroom lounge on the corner wing here at the end of the hallway.
What are all those rooms in the middle in gray?
So the gray rooms here are toilets, and this is a general storage room. There's additional, this super office is supervisory office. In addition to the IDF electrical rooms needed for the building equipment. And there's also the nurses suite.
What is SH? It's not shower, is it? SH? WR?
Yes, there is a shower area. That's meant for folks that cycle to the new school, as the school will have bike storage. It's required to have bike storage, so there's a shower that's available.
And what does IDF mean?
IDF is mechanical equipment. It's usually, I believe it's rooms that are used to store telecommunications, such as a server or backup equipment needed for that. So the fourth floor here will have the art classroom next to the library, in addition to the science resource room, music classroom, classrooms for the older students, a staff lunchroom, and the custodian's office. There's also a room here for community school district special ed, and also a smaller resource room. This area here in orange is the upper level of the gymatorium, because there's, oops, sorry about that, there's a double high ceiling, so it takes up 2 floors.
So that area will be closed off, in other words.
Right, it's closed off. It's just so folks know, what that is that it's just differentiating the different spaces so that, folks can see that the gymatorium is actually 2 stories. Okay, so this is the rooftop area with the rooftop units, as well as the electrical room, as well, and the room for the elevator operating system. Also the generator, the backup generator for the school will also be located on the roof. So that brings us to the formal end of the plans. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Great, it looks great. I mean, I'm not sure if anybody here has any questions. Just comment in chat.
No, that's all.
Eden, welcome, we saw you, yes. Does anyone have any questions regarding the rendering of the Water's Edge project? I think it looks great. So that is anticipated to start, is it still on schedule to start in June?
It might be probably sometime around June. Let me just think. Yeah, so it looks like we might have a general contractor on board either in June or July.
And then it's estimated that the completion date is September of 26, correct?
Correct.
Meaning that that's when you intend it to be open to students, or I get confused on that because it's a similar problem with the 169 Bell Academy edition.
I'm sorry, Joe, I missed your question.
Yeah, so is that the completion date with SCA, and then you have to go through the approvals for the from the city, I guess, before they can allow students to start?
Oh, yeah, so the approval process for the permits and the temporary certificate of occupancy and all that by the Department of Buildings is baked into that completion date. The general contractor must finish, including receiving all those approvals, to open up for occupancy at that time.
So it's anticipated that school will start at that school on September 2026.
Correct.
That's good. Okay, perfect. I don't want to take up all your time, Ben, but do you have any news on any changes to the 169 Bell Academy project or the PS32 edition? Is that still on target?
No, not at this time. They're both still on target. For 32, we anticipate bringing the crane on site soon to do the steel work and start the exterior of the building.
And then the one for Bell Academy, the PS 169?
Yes, that one is moving full steam ahead. for a September 2024 opening.
Understood. Okay, so that's great. I mean, it's good to see that there's some progress being made in our district. I know you represent the whole city, but like I say, District 25 is interested about District 25, right?
Of course.
So it's all good stuff. We hope that the project gets approved for the 45th Avenue project. And I invite those who are here this evening, if you support it, to also join the community board, and we'll put the postings up, meeting scheduled later this month. So, Mr. Goodman, I just, like I say, I communicate a lot with the community board, and I know that the community board always likes to get feedback. I guess they just like to be heard, and they, you know, I guess they appreciate that you give feedback with them. So I'm just giving you a word of advice that make them feel that they're giving their feedback and their voices are being heard. And I think you won't have a problem.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Okay, so if there are no other questions or comments from Mr. Goodman, I want to thank you, and then we'll move on to the rest of our agenda. Any more comments or questions for Mr. Goodman? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Goodman. So again, if you have time in the future and you want to show us a better rendering of those new projects, let me know. And you're more than welcome to join our meetings in the future.
Sure, will do. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Ben. Be well.
You too. Take care.
Take care. Okay, so we're just moving along because we have a very busy agenda here. So we're gonna go now to the, you wanna just do the district first? You wanna do the, it's up to you. Okay, we're gonna start with the Fair Student Funding presentation with our superintendent, Danielle DeMango.
Good evening, everyone, and I want to thank Ben Goodman for being here tonight. It's very exciting to hear all of the construction that's happening across our district and how we are creating more seats. So we're really happy to hear that we're moving along. Because we have so many very large presentations tonight, one of the things that I have spoken to President DiBenedetto about is foregoing my superintendent's report, but I do encourage everyone in the community to refer to our district newsletter, which has gone out to all of our schools, as well as our local elected officials and community-based organizations. So please feel free to see that. There's a lot of really exciting things that have happened across our district throughout the month of February. It's celebrating Black History Month, Lunar New Year, and we've had some during Respect for All Week. So there's just a lot of really amazing things that we are pulling out in our newsletter. Tonight, I am here as your superintendent, Danielle DeMango, and with our budget representative, Paula Latito, who supports our schools directly with all matters related to budgets. Carly, I just want to make sure that Paula.
I am here. I'm here, Danielle. I'm here.
Hi, Paula. Good to see you. So every spring, the Panel for Education Policy, or the PEP, votes on the DOE budget allocation formula for the following fiscal year. In preparation for this event, superintendents and borough-based support staff represent the DOE's proposed Fair Student Funding budget allocations for fiscal year 2024 to all community and citywide education councils. The purpose of today's presentation is to review the DOE's budget and budget allocation formula, review Fair Student Funding and the proposed changes for fiscal year 2024, which aligns with the 2023-24 school year. This presentation marks a new approach in how New York City Public Schools is conducting community engagement around our budgets and any proposed changes to the Fair Student Funding formula. Our goal is to increase our transparency in ensuring that you, as critical community stakeholders, are made aware of how schools are funded and made aware of the resources available to you to better understand your school budgets. Our new approach is a change that was one of a few recommendations made by the Fair Student Funding Working Group, convened in July 2022 at the request of our Chancellor. The Fair Student Funding Working Group worked over the course of 4 months in partnership with national school finance experts and our own finance team to deeply understand the current Fair Student Funding formula, look at New York City school demographics, and make recommendations for changes to the formula. The working group included a wide range of stakeholders, including CEC members, PEP members, union leaders, advocates, parents, and elected officials. The working group published a report in November 2022 to make recommendations to the Chancellor for changes to the formula, which he considered and determined a few recommendations to move forward with. We will be discussing those changes in this presentation shortly. In addition to the recommendations to change the formula, the working group also asked that we work intentionally to better engage the community about school budgeting, the Fair Student Funding formula, and how money to schools is allocated within this formula. This presentation marks a shift in our approach and demonstrates our commitment to the recommendations of the working group to focus on our transparency and community engagement. Please note that the CEC presentation for tonight's meeting is posted at the link I will share, along with translated versions of the deck. The link is https://infohub.nyc.org/reports/financial data and reports. And that will also be shared in the chat with you this evening. The posted version online does not include our district-specific slide 6, since all CECs are doing this presentation before the April PEP meeting. However, we can share the district-specific slide with the CEC to share with you all if anyone would like the district-specific slide. I appreciate joining your meeting today, and we'll dive into this presentation. Now on to the agenda. Next slide. Today I'm going to be discussing 3 main topics: sharing an overview of this year's overall New York City Public Schools budget, providing a detailed explanation of the Fair Student Funding formula, and discussing the proposed changes to the Fair Student Funding formula for the 2023-2024 school year. If you have questions during the presentation, I'm going to ask that you direct them to the chat. We will have the team members ready to respond to these questions. Questions that they are not able to answer during the presentation will be collected and shared with New York City Public Schools team, who will then respond, and I will share back with the group. Additionally, the intention of this session is to collect public comments on our proposed changes. We ask that if you have specific feedback on the proposed changes to the Fair Student Funding formula, that you please feel free to share that feedback with budgetpubliccomments@schools.nyc.gov. Our New York City Public Schools team will be taking public comments received at this email address into consideration in the coming weeks. And one final note about the presentation. While I will be providing an overview of our overall New York City Public Schools budget and our district budget, I will not be reviewing our individual schools' budgets. Those are accessible on our public website. This slide shows you the steps to find the school budgets from our homepage. I will give you a minute to use this information to load your school-specific budget if you are interested. If we are virtual, my moderator, Louis Latito, will also be dropping the link for you into the chat. Okay, next slide. I'm now going to provide an overview of our overall budget and where the funding comes from. Our total budget for the 2022-23 school year is $37.6 billion, or about $31,000 per student in our system. New York City provides most of our funding. For the 2022-23 school year, The city contributed 20 billion or 54% of our total budget. Most of our drawing from the city comes from what we call tax levy dollars. City tax levy funds are drawn from local taxes, including property taxes, sales tax, and personal income taxes. Every year, the mayor proposes the amount of city tax levy funding we get, and the city council must pass this budget into law. 13 billion or 36% comes from New York State funding. New York State is our second largest source of funding. For the 2022-23 school year, the state will contribute 13 billion or 36% of our total budget. Every year, the governor proposes the amount of state funding that we will get, mainly based on the number and types of students enrolled in our schools, and then the state legislature must pass the budget into law. Funding generally comes from income and corporate taxes, as well as property and sales tax. Federal funding comprises a total of $4 billion of our funding for this school year. The federal government is our third largest source of funding. The federal government gets its funding mainly from income taxes. Every year, Congress proposes a budget and the president must sign the budget into law. The Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, provides the rules for allocating most of the federal funding we receive. For the 2022-23 school year, the federal government will contribute $2 billion or 5% of our total budget, as well as an additional $2 billion or 5% of our budget in temporary federal stimulus funding. In the previous slide, we covered an overview of where New York City Public Schools receives its funding from. And now we will shift into how that funding is spent in our schools and across our system. The largest portion of our budget is allocated towards K-12 schools and instruction. We allocate $15.1 billion or 46% of our overall budget annually to support our schools, including health and school climate initiatives, special education, and other operating expenses. Most of the instructional dollars, over $15 billion this year, are controlled at the school level. Within our budget, we have mandated costs that must be covered annually, including employee benefits, pension, debt, as well as state mandated payments to charter schools, non-public, and contract schools. We allocate $2 billion to support early childhood across the city. Finally, our superintendent, field offices, and central offices comprise just 2% of our overall budget. K-12 allocations are dollars given directly to schools in addition to associated fringe and pension costs, under the oversight of principals and superintendents. School budgets are used for all instructional expenses at the DOE. $15.1 billion in school budgets paid for costs, including salaries and benefits for classroom teachers, classroom paraprofessionals, principals and assistant principals and deans, and other classroom and school-based staff. This also includes funding for textbooks, computers, materials, and supplies. The school operations section pays for non-instructional services that students receive. The $4.3 billion is used to pay for costs, including free breakfast and lunch available to all students, bus routes, loan payments on buildings, new construction and renovation. This is similar to mortgage payments. Non-public and contract school payments cover schools and programs that educate New York City students, but are not directly run by the New York City DOE. The $2 billion includes charter schools, students with disabilities attending specialized schools, and supplemental services to students attending non-public schools. Employee benefits, pension, and debt. This $10 billion pays for healthcare and other employee benefits, pension payments for staff, and debt payments on loans for school construction and upgrades. Next slide. We are now going to look at the financial breakdown for our district. Again, this will not cover the breakdown by schools. You can find that on New York City Public Schools website by following the directions we shared at the start of the session. And once again, that link will be dropped into the chat. As you can see in District 25, we have $396 million budget across 47 pre-K to 12 schools serving 32,768 students, including our pre-K centers, and this includes our high schools as well. This does not include D75 since those programs are not funded through Fair Student Funding. School budgets are comprised of a mix of Fair Student Funding and other funding sources. Pre-K centers are not funded with Fair Student Funding. Next slide. Who decides how the money is spent at the school level? Once this funding is in place within school budgets, principals are responsible for the funds allocated to schools and have a great deal of flexibility in how they spend the funding. These choices are made in partnership with the school leadership teams, or SLTs. As principals and SLTs create the school's comprehensive education plan, or CEPs, they identify school-specific instructional needs and priorities and align the school budget to this plan. Principals work with their SLTs to create the school budget in alignment to the goals and instructional priorities outlined in the CEP. Superintendents, like myself, supervise all principals in our district through this process and must approve all school budgets in alignment with the school's CEP. We will now go into more depth about what Fair Student Funding is. Next slide. Fair Student Funding, sometimes referred to as FSF, is the largest funding stream that we provide to schools. As discussed on the previous slide, the allocation of Fair Student Funding provided to schools is based on the number of students enrolled at each school and the specific needs of those students. We make these calculations based on our Fair Student Funding formula, which calculates how we distribute this overall pot of money to schools. Within the formula, students with needs that require more support receive more funding in alignment with those needs. As indicated in previous slides, Fair Student Funding is a significant proportion of the school's budgets. In fact, these funds account for nearly 2/3 of most K-12 New York City public schools budgets. In many cases, schools also receive funding from other funding streams, including federal funding streams like Title I, Title III, IDEA, which is funding focused on special education, or other targeted allocations for specific initiatives. These pots make up the remaining funding within the overall school budgets. As a note, charter schools, 3K and pre-K, and D75 programs are funded outside of the Fair Student Funding formula. Additionally, mandated IEP-related services, including speech teachers, occupational therapists, and physical therapists, as well as one-to-one paraprofessionals, are also funded outside of the Fair Student Funding formula. Again, the money provided to schools from the Fair Student Funding allocation provides principals with significant flexibility, working in partnership with their SLTs, to utilize the funding to design instructional programs tailored to the needs of their students within their school community. Funding from the Fair Student Funding allocation provides for each school's basic instructional program and classroom services. This funding can be used to pay for classroom teachers, including arts, gym, and cluster teachers at the elementary level, as well as school leadership, guidance counselors, social workers, and administrative and pupil support staff. Additionally, the Fair Student Funding can pay for after-school programs, tutoring and intervention programs, as well as teacher absent coverages and classroom resources and materials. Next slide. I want to now use this opportunity to further clarify some of what we have already discussed today. Throughout this presentation, we have been talking about Fair Student Funding and the Fair Student Funding formula. When we say Fair Student Funding, we are talking about the money that is allocated to K-12 schools from this large pot, not including pre-K centers or District 75 programs. This year, the Fair Student Funding pot is $7 billion. The Fair Student Funding formula is the method by which we decide how to allocate that funding to schools. This slide outlines the formula and how we use the formula to calculate the total amount of Fair Student Funding that each school receives. Now I'm going to walk you through how we utilize the formula to determine how much Fair Student Funding each school receives and how we determine that specific dollar amount. Off the top, each school receives a foundational amount of $225,000 annually. This is a baseline funding allocation that is provided to every school, regardless of the number of students that the school serves. Next, we add funding for collective bargaining related costs, which is contractual pay and increases for school staff. Then we calculate the remainder of the fair student funding by allocating a base amount for each student, also known as per capita, and then allocating additional funding based on each student's identified educational needs and instructional programs. It is in this part of the formula that we take into account the weights that we have been referring to throughout the presentation. On the next slide, we will dive more deeply into the weights that we utilize to determine the specific dollar amount that we allocate per student so that you have a clear understanding of what goes into this part of the formula. I also want to pause here to reiterate that within this formula, we take the time to examine the individual needs of each student to determine funding allocations. We make these individualized calculations for each student aligned to their individual and specific needs and educational program to determine how much funding would be provided to that school for each student. Next slide. Yeah. Okay, now to more deeply understand the current weights that we use to calculate that last part of the formula from the previous slide. On this slide are the fair student funding weights for the current school year for 2022-2023 or fiscal year 2023. Here you can see the different types of weights that students can be eligible to receive based on their instructional needs or academic programs. Again, these are weights for this current year. In the previous slides, we mentioned that Fair Student Funding Working Group has made recommendations for changes to the Fair Student Funding formula. This is the area where they made recommendations for changes. Later in this presentation, we will show a very similar chart that indicates weight changes that we are proposing for the next school year, 2023-24, fiscal year 2024, made as a result of the work of the Fair Student Funding Group. Now I will explain the weights, the different weights on this slide. For 2022-23, the base weight of 1.00 was equal to approximately $4,197 per capita. This per capita is adjusted annually to reflect changes to the citywide average teacher salary. The basic grade weight is allocated to schools for all students on their audited October 31st register and is calculated by considering instructional programming requirements by student grade level with distinct weights for K through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. Why does 6 to 8 have a heavier weight than high school grade bands? The elementary school weight is set at primary weight of 1.0, and it serves as the starting point for the calculation of all the subsequent Fair Student Funding weights. Middle school students carry the largest weight due to the evidence of large drop-off in student achievement and greater average social emotional needs, as well as higher teacher cost factors, as middle school teachers are entitled to a preparation period and a professional or administrative activity period. 1.4 middle school teachers are needed to cover each class, compared to 1.2 for elementary school classes. High school students in grade 9 through 12 are weighted at a slightly higher level than grades K to 5 for several reasons. Older students tend to have higher costs for non-personnel, such as more costly science materials, and they often take electives that break into smaller classes, and their schools often require more administrative personnel. This approach is consistent with our historic funding practices and with practices in other cities. Take a training, sorry, the longest presentation. What? You can't take me reading? No, I'm good. academic intervention, or AIS, is determined by student academic performance when they enter a school, using test scores from their prior year. For schools where students do not have incoming test scores in the lower grades, such as before students begin taking tests, or if they do not have prior test scores, we provide funding based on a student's poverty level. Funding for special education is determined by the percentage of time students spend receiving special education services. For example, we have one weight for students receiving services for less than 20% of their week, another weight funding students receiving part-time services for up to 59% of their week, and a final weight for students receiving full-time special education services. These special education weights are then also broken out by student grade level with the specific weighting value, again, determined based on the cost of providing the instructional program. We also provide supplemental funding that supports students who have been declassified as special education students. This funding supports students in their first year transitioning out of special education services through the post-IEP transitional support weight. Funding for English language learners, or ELLs, is allocated based on student grade level, reflecting mandated instructional services, including bilingual and E&L instructional programming. Additionally, we have weights for former Ls who have achieved proficiency within the past 2 years, indicated using state designated term commanding. We also provide funding for Ls with students with interrupted formal education, or SIFE status. Students with this classification receive their respective L weights in addition to the SIFE weight. We also have another category of weights for portfolio high schools. These weights are provided to schools based on the number of students who are involved in these academic programs within each high school. Career and technical weights have different tiers based on the type of career preparation programs. Programs that require more resources such as nursing, agriculture and veterinary, aviation technology, automotive, culinary, etc., require industry-specific equipment, higher level of consumable supplies and materials, student internship requirements that are integral to the program of study, and highly specialized and ongoing industry training for teachers, have higher weights to support that instructional programming. They are also separate weights for students in specialized academic or specialized audition schools and for students attending transfer schools. Only students attending high schools are eligible for these weights. Next. We just took a look at all of the weights that students could be eligible to receive within the Fair Student Funding Formula allocation. I also shared that as we are calculating that formula for each school, we take into account the instructional needs of each individual student within the school as we determine schools' overall budget allocations. In this slide, we take a look at how each student's calculation is determined. The different types of weights are indicated by color in the upper right corner of the slide. In order to determine the weight for each student, we evaluate their eligibility for the weight based on data in the New York City public school system that stores key information about students. Now we're going to walk you through the process for how Fair Student Funding would be allocated for 2 students, Sam and Alex, through the Fair Student Funding formula. Sam and Alex are 2 students who attend an elementary school in our district. The orange section shows the grade weight that they first receive. Because they are elementary students, they are both entitled to the K-5 grade weight of 1.0, again, shown in the graph in orange. And now we're going to, next slide. And then, no, go back. Oh, yeah, sorry, I don't know. And now we've gone through into great depth on the overall New York City Public Schools budget for the current school year, as well as the current Fair Student Funding formula. I'm going to review what is ahead for the next fiscal year 24, which aligns to the 2023-24 school year. There are some common misconceptions around the Fair Student Funding formula and how it allocates resources to schools and students. Our analysis show that by and large, the Fair Student Funding Formula is very effective at directing more resources to students that have greater needs. As noted on the slide, through the Fair Student Funding Formulas, our schools with the highest share of students in poverty receive 26% more per capita funding than our schools with the lowest share of students in poverty. Further, our analysis show that similar patterns exist for schools with students in temporary housing, students with disabilities, and English language learners. And while our data show that the way we calculate fair student funding allocation through Fair Student Funding Formula is equitable, next slide, we do believe that improvements can be made to the Fair Student Funding Formula. As discussed briefly earlier in the presentation, in summer 2022, the Fair Student Funding Working Group was formed in response to Chancellor Banks' request to examine the Fair Student Funding Formula and make suggestions for improvements to it. Over the course of 4 months, the group worked in partnership with national experts and our New York City Public Schools team to analyze and identify a series of recommended changes to the formula, as well as aligned policy recommendations. The working group was tasked with reviewing and making recommendations relating to the Fair Student Funding Formula, including the categories, types of students, grade levels, and weights within the formula, in order to best meet the needs of students citywide, while keeping equity at the core of the work. The working group published a report with recommendations for changes to the formula in November 2022. All of the working group's materials, including the presentations, meeting minutes, and the final report, are available on our website at the link provided in the chat. Next slide. The Fair Student Funding Working Group published a report with recommendations for changes to the Fair Student Funding, as well as policy recommendations for how New York City Public Schools could improve fair student funding overall. As a note, some of the public materials published by the working group showed that in some of the modeling that districts would lose funding as a result of some of the proposals. In our implementation of these new weights, districts and schools will not lose funding as a result of these new weights. Moving forward, the Chancellor has accepted and is proposing 2 changes to the Fair Student Funding Formula, which I will now discuss. We are first proposing to add a students in temporary housing weight to the Fair Student Funding Formula. This weight would provide additional funding to schools for students who are identified as students in temporary housing. This marks a significant shift in how we allocate resources to our students, with this specific focus on supporting students who reside in temporary housing. This will have an impact on our asylum-seeking families who are living in temporary housing, providing additional resources to the schools who are taking them in. This was the top recommendation from the Fair Student Funding Working Group and is expected to drive $45 million in funding, impacting students in temporary housing across all 5 boroughs. We will better understand how much funding we will be receiving in our district by late spring, when initial allocations are released. Secondly, we are proposing to add a concentration weight to the Fair Student Funding Formula. The concentration weight would provide additional funding to schools with high populations of students with significant needs. Research shows that schools that serve higher concentrations of students with high needs, such as students in poverty, students with disabilities, and English language learners, require additional resources to provide robust education and appropriate resources and supports for their students. This weight is expected to drive $45 million in funding to schools in all 5 boroughs and would impact over 300 schools across the city, serving the highest concentration of our neediest students. We will better understand how much funding we will receive in our district by initial allocations made late in spring. The concentration weight includes factors for proposition of students who are in poverty, consistent with the working group's suggestion that we look at poverty in our weights, students with disabilities, and students who are in temporary housing, and other indicators. Next slide. In addition to changes to the weights outlined in the previous slide, the Chancellor has also accepted additional recommendations from the working group. Moving forward, New York City Public Schools will be prioritizing budget appeals process to be responsive to special education programming. Throughout the engagement sessions, the working group shared the critical need for schools to receive funding for all of the programmatic needs of students with disabilities in general education setting. Understanding that there are changes to special education programming that may be impacted by changing enrollment at schools, we will be prioritizing supporting small schools and schools with high proportion of students with disabilities in the budget appeals process. While this was not a recommendation in the working group's final report, we heard this as a significant issue from many members of the working group and wanted to be responsive to the needs of the group. We will also be working as a system to increase our transparency around school budgets. We also heard concerns over a lack of transparency and understanding in how we fund schools, how the formula works, and what funds are available at the school level. We are taking steps to address this by being more thoughtful around how we present information to the public and ensure that through presentations and on our website, that information is more accessible to all our stakeholders, including making significant changes to presentations like this one. In order to decide on which recommendations to choose, we carefully considered the recommendations of the working group and looked closely at the impact of each recommendation. The working group was clear with their values, and we have more work to do to direct funding to our schools with the greatest needs. We selected these proposals by balancing the values of equity and stability, looking to direct additional resources towards our schools and students with our highest needs, while ensuring that schools do not see disruptions to existing resources. As a note, schools will not lose money as a result of these proposals. We are not reducing any weights to schools to fund this proposal. This chart, similar to the one shown earlier, now includes the proposed new weights for the next school year. What is listed here in the blue highlighted section in the top right-hand table are the proposed changes to the Fair Student Funding weights for the next school year. That means, if approved by the Panel for Educational Policy, or the PEP, in April, these new weights will be used to calculate the school's Fair Student Funding for the 2023-24 school year. If approved by the PEP, there is no impact to the current school year budgets. New weights would be calculated and impact schools' budgets by initial allocations for fiscal year 2024, school year starting this September. And now, here is our timeline for moving forward. In February and March, given initial budget estimates of city and state revenue, New York City Public School superintendents present the CECs with the proposed Fair Student Funding weights for the coming school year. That is this presentation. In April and May, the Panel for Educational Policy votes on the proposed Fair Student Funding weights for the coming school year. In late spring, New York City Public Schools will release budget allocations to schools. In June, principals, along with their school leadership teams, propose budgets for the coming year. In July, I and my team will certify alignment between school budgets and the comprehensive education plans, each school's CEP for the coming year. And in September, the new school year begins. All public comments will be reviewed by New York City Public Schools teams. Public questions and comments related to the Fair Student Funding formula will be posted on the Panel for Educational Policy website. Analysis and response of each relevant question and comment will be available for review on the Fair Student Funding website in advance of the April 28th vote. Comments and questions may be directed to the following email address or phone number by April 18th, 2023. You can send public comments to budgetpubliccomments@schools.nyc.gov or by phone to 212-374-6754. I thank you tremendously for your time and attention today. Thank you for sharing your questions throughout the presentation in the chat. We will be gathering any unanswered questions and sharing back responses within a few days. If you have any additional questions that I can support in answering, please reach out to me and my team at contact@d25.nyc. Thank you again. Okay, Paula, you're answering any questions.
I'm here.
So there are
Okay,
no
so I
questions
don't know
in
if,
the chat.
do we have any, anybody here that, let's start with CEC members. Is there anyone here that has any questions for the superintendent or for Paula? And Paula, thank you for showing up this evening.
You're very welcome.
And then we'll go to the public at large. So are there any, I'd ask if you raise your hand.
Hi, Joe. I have a question.
Okay, go
It's
ahead.
Wendy.
Wendy, go ahead.
So with this new calculation, will there be a decrease in funding in our district based on this new formula? Would anyone know?
Now, Wendy, there's not going to be any decrease in the funding that we already received. It's going to be additional funding for certain schools with large numbers of students in temporary housing and a large, with the new concentration weight, schools that have like the neediest students will get extra funding, but we're not going to be, you won't be reduced any funding.
So no schools are gonna lose any funds?
No,
Because of the new formula.
But
no.
do we know if, if we're going to gain any funds based on these new weights? Does it affect our district?
I don't know. I did speak to Danielle a little about it. I don't think it's going to impact our district that much. We might have like 1 or 2 schools that might get a little extra that, have low performing students or many students in temporary housing, but I don't think it's going to affect our district that much, unfortunately.
Wendy, I also want to be clear because, I know you heard what Louis just said. The formula, the Fair Student Funding Formula will not lead to any reductions in our school budgets. But there are things that may, such as if schools do not meet their register projections.
Right.
So if schools don't have students enrolled or students are discharged from, our district, because each school gets allocation per student, that could affect a school's budget.
I was just thinking, the additional allocation for those in temporary housing, they could be enrolled in one school at the beginning of the year, and that school would get that funding.
Wendy,
And
we can't hear you. Can you start again? I don't know, you're coming in and out.
So I was saying, a student in temporary housing might enroll in one school the beginning of the year, but may not be, it may move to another district. Will funding be reallocated?
Usually, Wendy, it goes by the October 31st date. If they're enrolled in that school usually gets the funding.
For that entire year?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, this is a very complex formula and very detailed presentations. Thank you, Danielle. But I have just a question. I have a question. So I know that citywide, we estimated that we will spend about $31,000 per year per student, right? Do we know what those numbers are for our district?
No, they didn't share that information with us, Danielle. Yeah, we have no district information like that.
Understood. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
There's nothing in the chat. One person is thanking you for the presentation and all the information.
One further question, maybe, Paula, you could help. If you go back to the screen, can you do that? Yep. Can you go back to the the presentation, page 11, because I don't think I was able to follow how the weights work.
No,
That one,
Yeah,
that one, correct.
Yeah,
So I understood the first part, the grade weight, and I didn't understand how we got the different numbers between Sam and Alex.
okay. All right, Danielle, I'll do this. So, all right, we understand the grade weight. All the students in K-5 schools, primary schools, they all walk in the front door with $1. We're gonna use $1 in their backpack, say. And then the rest of the weights are whatever kind of extra need they have. So the academic, as you see, for elementary school, it's the same. So it's an additional 12 cents. So both Sam and Alex get the 12 cents. All right. Then if you go down to the green, that's your English language learner. It depends on what kind of service they need. So here it's showing me that they didn't, they're not receiving the same service because Sam is getting 40 cents and Alex is getting 44 cents. And then when you go up to special education, you'll also see that Sam is getting a different amount of money than Alex. Alex looks like he's in a full-time ICT class. Well, Sam might just have, it looks like he has multiple services, not considered full-time. So that's why their salaries are, that's why they receive less money. That's why Alex actually has more money than Sam.
Yeah, and same is very similar for the type of special education service that a child receives, but
Right.
also where a child is in language acquisition. That depends upon the number of periods of services that they receive around English language learner services.
So these weights, I mean, so it's to the point that you're looking at every individual student in every school? Is that what it is? Okay.
Yes.
That's a lot of work, right? But I mean, so who's doing that work? Is it the principal of the school or is it the SLT?
No, central
Central.
calculates, right?
Well, essential
It's essential. It's actually this. Yeah, the school actually will be, entering this information into certain systems. Like when they register students, they register, there's like flags in all of our systems that indicate what levels these kids need and what special ed services they have. And all these systems that we use will spit out all the information.
That's a lot of work. I see, yes.
It's a lot, yeah. I mean, the special ed comes from one system and the L's come from another system. The grade weight is easy because every student gets that amount of money, But yeah, that's a lot. It's through the systems though. We just enter information though. We do enter information.
Understood. Does anyone else have questions? Is there something in the chat? Okay, last opportunity. I know we have until April, correct? It's on the chat for any comments. I'd invite you, if you have any comments, to post them. Or if you want to ask any questions, this is the time. We have Paula here, we have the superintendent here. Okay, so
There is a question in the chat.
thank you. Veronica?
Yep, so the question is there no amount that transfers with the student? So I think, Veronica, are you referring to students who change schools after October 31st? Yes, that's what she's
Okay,
asking.
so Veronica, like their needs will always transfer. Like if they go to a new school and they had special education services in their old school and, they'll always get that, always get the service. But after October 31st, it is a little tricky. It really is because it's the school really that gets the money when they're there on October 31st. If a child transfers after October 31st, special ed, special education and English language learners, the money for those students really are not adjusted until December 31st. So if they transfer after October 31st, but are in a new school before December 31st, those weights transfer to the new school. Does that make sense? It was a little confusing, right?
I think so. Veronica, are you okay with that?
And then, of course, so is the adjustment in December like a plan B, like a second, like a
Yeah,
second
well, you know what it
try?
is, they adjust the grade weight October 31st, which is your largest weight. And then your English language learner weight and your special education weight, that actually gets adjusted on December 31st. So even if a student comes in after October 31st, they might not get the grade weight, but they're always going to get the special ed weight or the English language. They'll always get something.
And of course, in the next school year, if that student's in that new school, they'll get. all
Oh, yeah, the
rest of
whole,
that,
yeah,
because they're in that
right.
new school year.
right. Mhm.
And this
May I
goes for-
just,
Yes,
may I
go ahead,
just
Joe.
say something?
Yep.
I worked in the school before. The October 31st number is very important. The DOE
Yes.
has to make a decision as to what money to give to each school. They can't just keep adjusting it every day. So if a student transfers, that's far and few in between. Most kids stay, if
Right.
I'm not mistaken.
No, you're
They
right.
need-
That's right. October
But they need a
31st.
number to go by so that they can allocate the budget.
Right. We can't, like you said, we can't keep on adjusting budgets every time a student leaves or transfers.
Thank you.
Understood, thank you. I'm seeing 4 comments up. Is that those all comments? Okay.
Yeah, we're good. We're good in the chat.
So if we're good, this is your last opportunity. If anyone else has any questions, otherwise we're gonna move forward. And I want to thank Superintendent Domingo and Pauline here. Paul, I'm sorry. Are we good? Perfect. So now we're gonna move to our next portion of our agenda, which is the state of the district.
Turn this right over to Dr. D'Antoni.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So happy to be here in company with you tonight. As you know, as part of the work that we do at the district, it's something that we add to the agenda with the CEC's approval to share the state of the district with you in terms of the performance of our kids across the year. So we typically do this 3 times a year, just after the diagnostic assessments have been completed. So what I'm going to share with you tonight is where we currently are as a district community, connected to a couple of the assessments and the priorities that we've set for ourselves at the district level, which live in our district comprehensive education plan. So I'm gonna get going and share. Now this is pretty lengthy. I will, I'm not necessarily, there are slides with text. I'm not gonna necessarily read from every slide, but I'll just share the basic points with you so that you can get a good picture of where we're going. And I do want to start by saying, that we have made some progress across the beginning of the year, from the fall assessment to the winter assessment, and that's due to the hard work of our building leaders and our staff. But having said that, with all the progress we've made, we know we have a lot more work to do. So here we go. Priority 1, we're going to talk about our early childhood reading goal. Priority 2, we're going to talk about the chronic absenteeism goal, and share the current state where we are. Priority 3 is around reading in grades 3 through 8. Priority 4, while our goal for priority 4 is not directly related to math across grades K through 8, it's more an algebra 1 goal. I'm going to share information with you about math in general too, as well as I share around what our current state is and with algebra 1 currently. And the last final goal is around parent involvement. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a survey that we recently shared with our district community and some of the results currently. And that survey is still open. So any of our families that are here, any parent leaders that are here, I encourage you to share with your local community to make sure that we get as many pieces of feedback as possible, because we will be using it, as I'll talk about later, to support our next steps. But priority 1, in alignment with the Chancellor's vision this year, is that all students learn to read well. For us at the district level, we have seen progress toward improving reading proficiency across the district. Overall, we did see a 4% change in student performance. This is for our all students subgroup from the beginning of the year till now. Our Hispanic learners, a little over 3% positive change in performance from those performing on or above grade level. For our Black learners, over 4% positive change in students performing on or above grade level. And the one thing that I do also want to, students receiving tiered support is part of our goal. We did see that children that are part of our MTSS work, which is over 2,000 children across the district, but this in particular for K-2, we did see 11% change for those children that are receiving those additional tier 2 or tier 3 services. So that work is having an impact. We do have more work to do there. But one thing I did want to celebrate is that nearly 78% of our general education students in grade 2 are currently performing on or above grade level, which is really, really significant achievement. I did want to highlight that for the community. Now, when we look at our overall data from fall to winter, you'll notice that our bars are definitely showing a change in overall outcomes. Our orange bar is from the fall, our blue bar is from the winter. The area on the left, you'll see that it's the well below benchmark. We do want to make sure that that blue bar was going down, which we were able to see some of that happen there. And the blue bars on the right side for at benchmark and above benchmark, we do see that there was a positive change on that end as well, a little over 4%, as I mentioned earlier. Our goal with our district leadership team was that we were going to get to a space of 5% improvement as a district. Last year, around 56%. Right now, if things remain consistent with last year, we would be just under what that goal was. But in working with our schools and continuing to push with our staff, we're hoping that we can achieve that goal by the end of the school year. For our Hispanic learners, we did see progress here as well, particularly where we're looking at our well below benchmark. We saw a 7% change, 7+% change there, as well as a 4%, as I mentioned, just under 4% change for those that are at or above. This particular subgroup, we are falling a little bit below our benchmark goals for mid-year. So we'll talk a little bit about what we're going to continue to do to support this in just a moment. But we have made progress, but we need to make more progress moving forward. For our Black learners, we did see progress here, as I mentioned earlier. This is currently just under our DCP target by about 1.25%. If patterns continue, I do believe that we will meet our goal for our Black learners by the end of the school year. So we are on track with making the progress necessary, at least for what we established as a minimum goal for the start of this school year to now. But you can see how there is a change in performance from the beginning of the year to this point for our Black learners. And again, just a reminder, this is K-2 currently. For our Asian learners, we did see, and you'll notice our bars are pretty consistent in terms of the growth across each of these subgroups. For our Asian community, we are at 58.3% of students performing at or above grade level to 62.3%. So about a 4% change for our Asian subgroup, much like our other subgroups as well. For our white learners, we did see the greatest change with this particular subgroup by a little over, just under 9% from the beginning of the year to winter. You can notice, as I said, the trends are pretty consistent across each of our subgroups to date. This particular subgroup did grow at a different rate than the others. For our students with disabilities, we have made some progress. We grew by around 3% to around 38.5% of our students that are with special needs that are currently meeting benchmarks or at or above benchmark. We've seen similar pattern here. Obviously, this is at a lower rate than our other subgroups, but we still have still more work to happen here for our students with disabilities. Our English language learners, we did see a positive change from those that are performing well below benchmark by almost 8% from where we were at the start of the year to where we are now. We did see growth from the beginning of the year to now in terms of at and above benchmark as well by around 5%. This is a subgroup that is one that's important for us to continue to monitor, because we do have a significant percentage of our population that are new to the English language. And our children, regardless of that, are still in the space where we have to engage in these assessments to see where they are. So lots more work to be done with our Ls. We typically perform pretty well, comparatively speaking, to the city as a whole, but even saying that, we still have more work to be done. Now, what did we learn from this? We learned that we still have some more work that we're going to continue to do within our core foundational instructional programs. This year, as you know, Hegarty and Foundations are the two programs that we're engaging in for our children in kindergarten, first and second grade. We're really excited about the work that has been happening in our classrooms. We're visiting our classrooms as collective building leaders. We're stopping into rooms to see how those programs are being implemented so that we can make strategic changes inside of our schools. We're offering coaching supports from our district team, and we're building capacity through a training series, which is referred to as LETTERS. It's Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling. As I shared with you earlier at the beginning of the year, we have nearly 400 folks in our district that are participating in this training, and we're really excited to see where this is going to be bringing us moving forward. But that's where we are headed moving next in the district. Chronic absenteeism is our second area that we're prioritizing in terms of all students are physically and emotionally safe. There were a number of things that we could select within this particular area. And we identified chronic absenteeism because of its relationship to student performance. And we know that when our kids are not in school, it's difficult for them to sustain and keep up with the work. Currently, we have seen a reduction in where we were. So in the left-hand side, you'll see all of our subgroups. The next column is our kids that are chronically absent through January, followed by the next column, which is children that are chronically absent through February. And the reason why this changes is because there are some children that are at risk. So not all of these children are fully chronically absent. It means that maybe perhaps in many cases, which we know that the flu and the COVID-19 have still existed inside of our schools. So we're well aware that that contributes to our chronic absenteeism. But at the same time, it's really important for us at the district to really emphasize with our families, aside from those things when we know our children are ill, how do we make sure that we're consistently ensuring that they're in school? So that more often than not, we are in the buildings learning on a daily basis. So this 2% plus reduction is something that we're looking to see keep happening between now and the end of the school year. December and January were rough months when it came to student attendance. And I think at that point, we did had a number of cases where illness was quite a big issue in our schools. But aside from that, we have a number of things that we are going to continue to do as a district. All of our schools have teams that are directly responsible for focusing on student attendance. Those teams are connecting, engaging in outreach to our families. Our district team is visiting all of our schools, focused on engaging these teams to make sure that if there are any supports that are needed, and for us to provide some of those supports to the teams and to the school communities to bolster those attendance rates, including our attendance coordinator who's been pushing into schools, connecting with children that have been chronically absent, to engage them in things like yoga, mindfulness classes, and such, to really build that community inside of our schools so that our kids are there on a routine basis. And the next part of something that we'll be rolling out this month, we have recently engaged in a process of purchasing STEM-based opportunities for all of our schools. These programs are going to be directly related to supporting children that are currently at risk of being chronically absent, to invite them to participate in a variety of different courses that we're going to make available to them. Things like digital photography and podcasting and things of that nature, to really bolster the interest and promoting those high attendance rates that we're seeking. So that's currently where we are with our chronic absenteeism data and goal. All students are priority 3 is about all students having a high quality academic experience. This is a really important goal for us, as it touches on a number of things that we're trying to get accomplished at the district level. One of them being our work in and around MTSS, or multi-tiered systems of support, things that are happening across all of our schools. As I mentioned during the first priority, that it has yielded a positive impact because of that work, and we're going to continue building on that as the year goes on. In terms of our children in grades 3 through 8 in iReady, we have seen about over a 9% change in students' performance from the beginning of the year to now, from fall to winter assessment. For our Hispanic learners, a 9% change from fall to winter, and for our Black learners, a 5% change from fall to winter. Now, I am going to share the other subgroups. The reason why I highlight these three is because this is what we shared at our district leadership team and prioritize these particular groups because of patterns of performance over the past several years. Now, in terms of overall progress, you will notice here that the bars have differentiated quite a bit from where they were in the fall. Our blue bar for mid or above level has changed quite a bit, over 8% from where we were in the fall to where we are now for our all students population. And same for our children across the other areas that are 2 grade levels below, 3 grade levels below. We are seeing an upward trend for our children. Carly, would you mind just moving that bar just so that I could, so I don't have to keep looking down? Thank you. So one particular piece here that for us at the district level, we are projected using the iReady assessment for us to be around 57% of children being on or above grade level by the end of the year, and stretch growth to be around 64.5% by the end of the year, which would be under what our targeted goal was. Similar types of scenario as last year, we are performing at a little bit of a higher rate than we were last year at this time, and our performance was accelerated by a greater percentage than what you see here. So what I am anticipating is that children that are performing in this 1 grade level below range will be able to be accelerated up into that early on and above grade space by the end of the school year. For our Hispanic learners, we have seen progress here. This is a subgroup that we're going to continue to focus on as the year goes on, and certainly into next year and the years moving forward, as we still have some gaps in performance here. With typical growth, we are projected to be at 38% by the end of the year, which would be under our projections for, under our expectations for progress towards our DCEP goal, with projected performance if our students reach stretch growth to be around 46%, which would be a little bit under what our goal is for this school year. And I'll talk a little bit about what we're going to be paying attention to in just a moment for this particular subgroup. For our Black learners, we also did see progress, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago. About 5% growth in terms of mid or above, on or above grade level. We did see a significant change in terms of children that were 3 or more grade levels below by over 9%, which is really important. We do want to make sure that we're continuing to elevate our students from those positions of multiple grade levels below towards that space of proficiency. With stretch growth, our Black learners will achieve around 53%, which would allow us to meet our goal for this particular subgroup. Our white learners did grow from 37% to 48% based on iReady. iReady projects that will be over 60% of our white learners will be on or above grade level, with 69% of our students if they achieve stretch growth. Now, what stretch growth means is that they reach more than a year's worth of growth during the year, and many of our students have done that already by mid-year. So we're looking forward to seeing how this all works out by the end of the school year, but patterns suggest that we are on track to make some improvements. For our Asian learners, we did see an increase here for our Asian population. We went from 47.5% of our students on grade level to 59%. iReady projects that our students will be at 69% proficiency, with stretch growth being around 76% by the end of the year if we are able to push our students to that space. Here. For our students with disabilities, We did grow by around 6% from where we were in the beginning of the year to now. We did see a reduction of children that were in that 3 grade levels below space by around 11%, which is significant. We want to continue to work towards that end. I already projects that we'll be around 26% of our students on or above grade level, which would have exceeded where we were last year on the state assessment, as well as 34% if we achieve stretch growth, which would be in a space where is beyond where we had shown performance rates over the years for our students with disabilities. So we're looking to continue to grow in that space for these learners as well. Now for our Ls went from 4% to 9%. I already projects that we'll be at 13% with stretch growth around 19%. Last year, we were around 17% of our Ls were on or above grade level. What's really very important for us as a district community to continue to focus on is that many of our students that are new to the English language are within their first 3 years of service in District 25, which means that we have a lot to do to really accelerate their language learning and to meet their needs. Language proficiency does take 5 to 7 years for our students to reach that expectation, but we do all that we can to accelerate that space so that they are proficient readers throughout our schools. Now, what does this mean in terms of what we've learned? We know that our work in MTSS is something that has been having an impact, similar to our children in K-2. Our children in 3 to 8 have also grown by 10%. From where we were in the beginning of the year to where we are now, which is really important. We do know that based on our iReady data, vocabulary development and acquisition and comprehension are still areas that we need to attend to as a district. And the focus of our work is really on the close reading of text. So what we are doing as a district is engaging our building leaders and our teachers in professional learning that's connected to really allowing our kids to dig deep into what the text is saying, and more importantly, what the text means. So that's what we're currently concentrating our work on for professional learning. We're continuing to unpack a program that I mentioned to you at the start of the year. Is known as the CLAVIS Intervention Program for our Ls. This just began in January. We have been visiting our schools and we're seeing that our kids seem to be really connecting with it, as well as our teachers. And we're looking forward to seeing how that's impacting learning as the year goes on. We're going to continue our learning walks, specifically with the focus on close reading of text. We were fortunate that we were just in a building 2 days ago, Mr. Mango? I don't even know what day it is anymore. 2 days, yesterday, visiting classrooms with a specific focus on close reading so that we're all in that same space learning and growing together to support our kids. We're going to continue to build the capacity in the area of MTSS so that our teachers and our schools are making really strategic decisions around the needs of our students. Part of that work is our district team going to be visiting schools, really checking on the systems and structures that are in place for MTSS, and then offering the support and resources necessary if adjustments are needed. One of the things that we're also doing is engaging in strategic conversations with our schools around what their data says, and more importantly, what are we going to do next based on what it says. And those conversations are happening now with our building leaders, and we're really excited about engaging in these discussions to make sure that our kids are improving. Our multilingual learner service administrator, Michelle Lee, is currently also working on providing those supports necessary in terms of professional learning for our teachers and tiering their supports for our Ls in our classrooms. Priority 4 is around ensuring that our kids are college and career ready. With a strong pathway, a planned pathway to economic security is part of the Chancellor's priority. For us at the district level, I do want to share with you briefly before I get into the college and career readiness part of this goal. But we know that mathematics is a really important element of building towards college and career readiness. We have seen progress across our schools in mathematics from the beginning of the year to now. But we do have a common trend that is present. When we look across grades from 3 to 8, we have a significant number of kids. It's over 40% of our children that are in this space of 1 grade level below standard, which means that we have plenty of room there to grow our instructional practice and supports for our kids between now and the end of the year to ensure that they are on grade level by the end of the school year. Thus far, we've seen a 6% change in students performing on or above grade level for all kids. Our Hispanic learners, we've seen an 8% positive change in performance. For our Black learners, just under a 10% positive change in terms of from where we were in the beginning of the year to now. What I do want you to just take put your eyes on in terms of overall, the percentage of children at 2 and 3 grade levels below has shifted pretty significantly from where we were in the beginning of the year to now, by around 12% from where it was. So we are making that growth towards that space of proficiency. But when we go through each of our subgroups, you're going to notice that there is a significant percentage of children. So for our Hispanic learners, 47% of our children are in that 1 grade level below. We shifted from a space of 34% of our Hispanic learners 3 grade levels below to 17%. So we are making progress here, but we still have this space of learning that we have to continue to support, which is something that our building leaders are engaging in certainly as we speak, but as the year has gone on as well, which is why we're seeing progress for our kids. Similarly, for our Black learners, same type of scenario. We're seeing a very similar pattern across each of our subgroups. Whoops, did I pass the other ones too quickly? What did I do? Okay, I clicked the wrong button. But you're going to see a similar pattern across our subgroups where our children 3 or more grade levels below is shrinking, and the other areas are growing across our district. Now, this brings me to our map growth data. So what we did, we made a little bit of an adjustment as the year went on, as our goal is directly related to children and their performance in algebra. So in the past, we had been giving the iReady assessment for our kids in 8th grade that were taking the Regents, but it was not an apples to apples assessment in terms of making sure that we knew exactly how the kids would be performing against Algebra 1 Regents type questions. So we did make a shift in winter of this year so that we can get a clear picture as to where our kids are. So this data that you see on this slide is an indicator of where we currently are. Now, on the right-hand side, you see a little bit of text there that talks about where our kids performed, and 80 or above on the New York State Algebra 1 Regents last year was around 54%. This year, where we currently are, is around 68% of our kids that are in what we classify as the high achievement, high average achievement range, which also translates typically into children that are performing at levels 3 and 4 on an assessment. So right now we are well above what that space was from last year. And this includes, albeit we have a lot more work to be done here, this includes our targeted subgroups who have shown a 12-13% difference from where we performed last year to where we performed this year. Now, these are different children, different circumstances, all of those things being equal. We are showing a different range of performance with this assessment than we did last year. So there's some promising work happening within our Algebra 1 space. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've been doing and what we're going to continue to do to support our schools. We're fortunate we have added a math specialist to our team who has been working with our Algebra 1 teachers to really bolster the work that they're doing, specifically focused on MTSS. And sometimes we think MTSS, we go right to tier 2 and tier 3, those intervention supports. But this is also about what we're doing in classrooms for our children within the instructional core and the instructional program in tier 1. So that is the big concentration of the training that our teachers have been engaging in over the past couple of months. And we'll continue to do that through the remainder of the year. In addition to that work, we're going to be connecting with with our newly added staff member. Her name is Beth Eaton, who has joined the team. We'll be extending this professional learning and training supports for our teachers in K-8 to support some of those needs to get those children, particularly those that are in that 1 grade level below, to that proficient level as we move through the remainder of the year. What we do know is that the algebra strands, geometry strands, and just a general focus on problem solving is something that we do need to continue to build as a district community.
Before Dr. D'Antona goes into the parent engagement goal, I just want to make sure that we say thank you for him for putting together such an amazing presentation of the work that we're doing across the district. And for families to know that this presentation will be available on our district website. And the reason I say this to you is because when we talk about finishing the year strong, it's about parents having an understanding of where we are in our overall work in ELA, in math, and in chronic absenteeism and our parent engagement, and finding your space to engage with your school in a different way, to leverage some real targeted discussions about your students, especially this month as we're getting into parent-teacher conferences, to talk about where is my child in terms of ELA on iReady. And depending upon where your child is, that's what drives the conversation. So if they're 1 or 2, if they're 2 or 3 grade levels below, it's about what are the tier 2 and 3 MTSS supports you're giving to my child during a cycle of learning. If we're tier 1, what are some of the supports that are happening in the classroom, and how can I support that at home? So this was really important for us to make sure that the community is getting this information. Following this work, I will be going around very similar to what I did at the beginning of the year, around my 90-day plan and my listening and learning tour, really getting this information out to parents so they are engaging with their schools to make sure that we're finishing the year strong for our students.
And I do want to add on to that, and I thank you very much, Dr. D'Antona. I don't know what we would do without you, but this is what makes our district different, apart, and above the other districts, because we appreciate the fact that you and the district office and the superintendent do follow up. You give us the states of the district. We need to be on top of things like that. And I hope the community understands that this is a very valuable thing that you're doing for us. We appreciate it.
Thank you. And I also want to say we can't finish off strong without parents, right? So that's why this is so important to us.
Yeah, and just before I finish up this last one around parent engagement, the parent engagement goal, these types of things, and Superintendent Mango just mentioned it, but as your schools are engaging these conversations with you as well, because they are going to be doing similar types of presentations around at the individual school level, what kind of questions does it raise for you? Every time I look at information, it makes me ask another question, which is, the blessing and curse about data, I think at times, is that it allows you to keep asking. But it's important to ask, especially on behalf of your own children, for those that are receiving those supports, are they working, aren't they working? Those are really important questions for you to be able to ask so that we can really get, the best services possible for your kids. Now, this last goal is one that we added on a little bit later in the fall, as the new template came out for the expectations around goal setting. And most of the time, our parent engagement work is embedded in our goals, but at this particular time, we created a new one, which is around improving parent involvement in the district. So one of the things that we did was survey. We worked with our President's Council, and I thank our President's Council President, Francis Gonzalez. Thank you very much for allowing us to join, and for all of the other PTA presidents that were present to give us feedback on this survey that we administered to our families in the district. We did get over 1,200 responses, so I thank you. For anyone else that's on there, as I said earlier, get others to complete the survey. It does give us a great deal of information. Now, one of the reasons why we landed on parent involvement was based on the school survey from last year, which indicated in a number of our schools, in 25 of our schools, we were below a 90% favorable response rate from our families as it related to being involved in schools with this question in mind, this first one that you see. So during this school year, have you attended a general meeting other than a PTA meeting or school event? So right now, this says that we have 45, almost 46% of our families are indicating no, that they're not doing that. Listen, there are lots of reasons why we can or cannot, but I do think it's important to connect with your schools, to participate as much as you possibly can, and connect with. So part of this particular data set that we've challenged our parent coordinators on is really your thinking around, what are those other things that we're going to do to connect with our families and get them more involved. So we're already starting to see families, our schools open up for First Fridays. We had some started at the beginning of the year, but others now with the restrictions not there as they were at the beginning of the year are starting to bring our families back into spaces where they can be in schools and can participate in a different way. So I really encourage you to connect with your buildings and make sure that you know about those ways that you can be involved in your child's classrooms. So this is a particular one that was important to us, and we're going to continue to push on it as the year goes on. We had about 10 questions or so, and many of the responses were very favorable in terms of being comfortable engaging with my child's school. Nearly 82% felt that yes, they felt comfortable. We had a number of families or parents that indicated that they either agreed or disagreed. I kind of lumped those in with, not to say that they disagree, but I lump it in as we need to figure out a little bit more about why that is so that they can feel comfortable, can say that I feel comfortable. In terms of, having an opportunity to provide feedback, much like tonight, open it up for questions and conversation around, what is it that you think? What do we need to consider moving forward? Is the same thing that we want our families to be able to do in our schools. Now, why 74% of families saying that they get to do that is awesome, and that's a great percentage. We still have a number of families here that are not necessarily sure they get to do that. So how do we continue to keep those lines of communication open so our families feel comfortable? And I also want to say that this survey was broken down into multiple languages. So we had it in English, Spanish, Chinese, Korean, and then I pulled them all together. So we had all of this data that was represented. So we have a range of feedback from our families in the district. In terms of the progress of their children, nearly 78% said that they feel like it's done in a timely manner. 7%, and this was the highest percentage of disagree, that we do need to pay attention to certainly in our schools. And 14, almost 15%, neither agreed or disagreed. So like I said, those need to be lumped together and for our schools to really pay attention to this type of work in our buildings and rechecking, how are we making sure that our families are aware of what's going on with their kids. So it's a good way for us to reconnect with our families to make sure we're doing an optimal job in this space too. Met with parents on parent engagement time. This I can't encourage our families more than I'm going to right now. While again, almost 80% is great, we need to make sure that all of our families know that they can reach out with their teachers during parent engagement time. It's time that all of our schools have built into their program. And it's a great way just to connect, even for a few minutes, to say, how's my son or daughter doing? Is there anything that I need to know, anything that I can do to help? It's a great space for us to do that. We're going to continue to offer those opportunities and engage in that outreach. We'll do that moving forward. And, the idea that around that outreach that I know it's happening, we have over 90% of our families say they are being communicated with, right? So it's how do we make sure that that communication becomes something where it's now not just giving communication, but we have that dialogue. And we're able to not only see a newsletter or an email or get a phone message, but that I can talk with my child's teacher or building leader in a way where the other elements that we just talked about grow as well. Importance of good attendance. This, I'm happy that we're upwards of 85%, and a disagree is low because it is something that we've been pushing across the school year. Again, that neither agree or disagree is one that I would love to change and swap out into that agree space. So we're going to keep pushing towards that end to really promote the understanding around why we're talking about chronic absenteeism, and not necessarily when we know when kids are ill. We know that that's a big part of it, and don't encourage anyone to send their child when they're not feeling well. But it's an important element for us at the district level. My child's social emotional learning needs are being met, and this one is interesting because it connects to the last slide as well. We have almost 26% of our families indicated either they disagreed or neither agreed or disagreed. which ties into this last slide. I'm just going to hop to it because I think it's important. I would like information on parenting and or social emotional learning support. 63% of our families indicated that they feel as though they themselves would like to know more about that for themselves as a parent. And, you know, I raised my hand right away, having a 6th grader and an 8th grader myself. I know sometimes it's, you know, I wonder how many parenting fails that I have in a day, you know, so it's, you know, whenever I can get that additional learning, I'll certainly take it. But in this area, social emotional learning support in and of itself, you know, for our families to be asking for that is something that we are definitely going to be working towards moving forward. Nearly 77.5% of our parents that completed it said that they feel their child's academic needs are being met. 17% indicate that they either agree or disagree. Again, we need to find out a little bit more from this survey to get more information from some of our families. Now, this was anonymous, so it makes it difficult to drill down into specific people, but we will continue to keep these lines of communication going with everyone. And then the promptness of responses from our schools, 5% said they disagreed, 18% either agreed or disagreed, similar comment to the previous examples. Now, what did we learn? This data indicates the importance of ensuring that we continue to build opportunities to promote involvement and engagement. You know, we're reviewing this data as school leaders to make sure that we finish the year strong. Parent coordinators, as I mentioned, are going to be creating goals around this. We've also noticed that our parents requested opportunities to receive these supports, so we are going to be working on that at the district level, but certainly also at the individual school level to make sure that supports are made available so that we can finish the school year stronger and smarter. You know, I love all the iterations of our tree that have changed over the years, and to me they just keep getting better and better. So you know, really happy with the progress that we are seeing, but we also know that even inside of the progress, we have a long way to go, and we're excited about that.
You know, and the one thing that we want to say to parents is that this district survey is in addition to the school surveys that are coming out, and we do encourage parents to fill out the school survey. This district survey that we administered, it is anonymous, but we are able to gather information by school. We want our families to know that we come at this through a support lens, which is around based on the needs of individual schools. We'll have conversations with either parent coordinators or principals, just as how we as a district can support next steps based on parent voice. So we don't want parents to think that we come at this through a negative way. It is around how we can get stronger in our goal of increasing parent engagement. So we can open up. Thank you, Dr. Mike. You did a fabulous job as always. And we are here to answer any questions that you may have.
So a lot of data, and again, we are truly appreciative of what you do, Dr. D'Antona. I'm not sure if anyone in the community has any questions. Colin, can you check the chat? I know there was some comments in there.
Just comment. Sana said social emotional support really stands out as a key focus area. Thank you for the insights, Dr. D'Antona. And then Eden responded, Sana, I agree, and I know that's something that we continue to hear about time and time again in regards to elementary school students specifically.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, I think we also discussed it once before.
And I could speak a little bit to that. So over the next few months, we are going to be engaging with SLTs as well as the community. We are going to go to a district-wide recommended social emotional learning program where we will be able to support our school communities as a district just around building more social emotional supports to make sure that we have that at every single school. And I will say I use the word building and strengthening because they are there, but we just want to make sure that together as a community, we're growing and learning.
Perfect. I'm unable to read the comments from Sana.
MT asked these I'm not sure what that is. MT asked these two questions. I understand that not all the schools have the same access to iReady. If it is a tool used for DOE assessment and a good way to allow the children practice their reading and math skills, why is not fully funded without impacting the school budget?
So all schools have access to iReady. If your particular school does not, you can reach out to us. But that is something that Central did provide opportunities for schools to have the practice part of iReady this year, not just the assessment, right? The instruction part and the assessment. So all schools in New York City should have access to that. Yes, in reading and then in Zone for Math. Thank you.
The second question is about the parent chats hosted by District 25. What is the purpose and how and when will they start?
So we have them all the time. Yeah. Individual schools have them. And then when Dr. D'Antona and I do our school visits, very often we will engage in them. Our district parent chats, I know that Esther has been working to engage with parent coordinators to put together parent chats, and they should be starting, Esther, when is the date? Within the next month? Yeah. Yeah, so if you are interested in just a district only parent chat, you can contact the district office, but parent chats have been happening at all schools across the year.
So they should, where could we look?
How will we hear about the district PCs?
We don't,
Oh, parent chats, I'm sorry.
oh, from Esther, you can call Esther.
So it'll be publicized on
And yeah,
parent coordinators, I guess?
yes, it will be posted to the parent coordinators, yeah.
So we asked the parent coordinators for 3 parents to begin for the first one. They have given us that information. We sent out a Google form to see what time was best for the parents that we have. But if you want to join us, send me your information. I'll add your name for the second round.
Yep, so Louis, you'll put Esther's information, or Esther, you'll put your information in the chat. And anyone interested can send Esther her information, she'll put you in the first round.
That's great. So if anyone out there wants to start engaging that way and they have any questions, you can also contact the CEC office and we'll direct you. Perfect. Yeah, a lot of interesting things. I think and again, I mean, it was already stated, but I think the new topic to look out for is the social and emotional learning. We've been always looking at the academics. Perhaps it was because of the pandemic, or maybe because of the changes in technology, but it seems to be an issue that is up and coming with a lot of our students and perhaps even parents. And as parents, we may not know how to deal with it, so it's a good topic. Are there any other comments or questions for Dr. D'Antona regarding the state of the district? Thank you again, Dr. D'Antona. Thank you, Superintendent. We're going to move on with our agenda. What time is it? It's 9:20. We have a lot going on this evening. So the next topic deals with our budget modification, correct? So all the council members should have the budget at their disposal. I know we had amongst the council members, we discussed a possible a vote regarding our meeting room. So a lot of you are home, but we're expected to all come back, and we don't realize that we utilize a bunch of the tables here at the district office. We as a CEC, well, I've been on, but many of our members who are here this term have not been on prior to the pandemic. So they don't realize that the CEC does a lot of things for the community, and this district office that we share, this office that we share for our meetings with the district can be utilized by the CEC. So I think as we're all coming back and there are no more restrictions, we can look forward to maybe doing some workshops or whatnot, and this building serves as a resource. So I had presented through Carly a proposal that this room is in need of tables, right? So I know we're not the only ones who use the tables, but the CEC does in fact use the tables here. And we had submitted to the council members a proposal of what it would cost to replace some or all of the tables. But we need to get the council to vote on that. I know I spoke to Carly, and I think when it comes to office furniture, we may have passed the deadline, but you were in touch with somebody at,
But Yolanda,
with who?
Yolanda is my new budget person.
With the budget person, and I think she can make an exception and perhaps make that change, or, you know, supply what we need. But I need to make sure that everyone on the council is in agreement with me, because I'm not the council, right? So the proposal is that, well, first of all, if you look at the PowerPoint up here, or whatever, it says we have $15,000 still outstanding, Harley?
That's what you have left.
That's what we have left, okay? So if we need new tables, do we have the price per table?
So, okay.
Okay, so we understand that in this room, we have a total of 22 tables. So if we're asking for new tables, the best price that we can find is $203.59 per table. So what we're asking, what I'm asking, is if we would vote on allocating a new budget towards replacing all the tables, which would be 22 tables, which would total 4,478. I'm here to listen to your suggestions, council members, or we can talk about it and then maybe bring a vote. Does anybody have any opinion?
Yes, may I?
Sure.
Do I have-
Sure, go ahead.
Do I have a plan as to how to spend the whatever's left, 5,100? If not, why not get the tables? Because if we don't use the budget, it goes, you cannot keep it, you cannot use it next year.
So that is correct. We have a couple more months left, but this budget, if we don't use the funds in it, it goes back to the state, and we can't use it. It's done for this quarter, for this term.
So unless somebody
we
else-
have a couple months left, and I was gonna talk to you guys about perhaps an award ceremony, which we typically do. And this is a great year to do it because we're all back, and we could probably do something in person. But I spoke to Carly in the past about what we spent in the past, and it was no more than 3,000 or 4,000. So that seems to be the only other item that we have as a big expenditure. So, Mr. Chow, you're saying you're okay with allocating
Yes, absolutely.
$4,500 towards the new tables? Does anyone else have any opinions?
Hey, this is Wendy.
Hi, Wendy, go ahead.
I agree with Mr. Chow. If the money, the balance is not going to be used and going back to the state, then we might as well use it for a good cause. And I know that room is being used by, by a lot of organizations, staff, school students. And so it will be, if we get the tables, it will be but for the benefits of all. So why not?
So it would be beneficial to a lot more other resources than what we have, but it also is an opportunity for us to take advantage and, get the credit for providing the tables to this office, to this room, and perhaps even doing some type of workshop, right?
Yeah.
You would, sitting at home, may not see the conditions of these tables because we have them covered and we put the best ones up front, but they are in need of being replaced. So, does anyone else have any opinion on that? Or suggestions or comments or problems?
I know right now we are in all there, but we'll be there in the future, and others use it also. So we should take advantage and utilize the funds to help And then I like that table workshop.
Okay, so I don't know if you all heard it at home, but Eden also is supportive of replacing the tables. Is there anyone here that has any problem with that? And then we can take it to vote, or anyone else want to make any other comments? Okay, so of course, we would have to vote on it, and then Carly has to present it to the budget person, and then they have to approve it. So it's not a done deal, but it starts with us voting on whether we should allocate $4,478.98 toward, is that the right number?
Yeah, but it said it doesn't include shipping and handling, right? So you might, I don't know how much that.
Oh, plus shipping and handling, so.
You want to add a little bit more.
Okay, so we have, you were out of the room when we spoke, but
I'm sorry.
I think we're planning on what I wanted to discuss, perhaps doing an award ceremony, right? So we usually, during the award ceremonies, what do we spend?
You know, honestly, I don't remember any if you haven't had a person.
So, yeah, I think it was in the ballpark of like 5,000, right? So if we had 15,976 and we're looking at 4478 for the tables, I mean, I don't know how much shipping and handling would cost, but if we add another 1,000, so I mean, is that like, I don't know, I mean, are you guys okay if we just, I would rather put like a higher amount, and then if they use less, they use less, right? I would assume if we go around $6,000, that we should cover everything. I don't know. I haven't ordered anything in terms of the tables that would need to discuss shipping and handling charges, but I would assume it would be okay.
So you want to make it an even 6?
So is everyone okay if we allocate? It has to be from a DOE vendor, correct? That's right.
This is from Office Depot.
So it's from Office Depot. Does anybody?
Was from Office Depot.
So the quote came from Office Depot, which is a DOE vendor. So I'm not sure, do they charge for shipping and handling?
Yes, they're not contracted. So I would have to get a couple of bits in order to get those protected.
Okay, so if we allocate $6,000, would that be enough? What are your thoughts? I think we're okay. So what do we need to do with the budget, Carly?
That's it, I just need you to vote on it so I can add a furniture line.
So we would have to add a furniture line
Where are you
underneath
gonna take
office
it from?
supplies. And
Where are you taking?
where are we
it
gonna
from?
take it from, right? So, does anybody have any suggestions? Do we, Carly, because you know more than I do, do we have any member reimbursements?
I would take it from member reimbursement, and, because you wanna do the
We wanna do the
award
award ceremony
ceremony.
that comes from the purchasing
So
card, right?
no, you might take the P card alone. No, actually, you can take from the P card and you can take from member reimbursement.
What about meeting
Don't you want the P card
expenses?
for the award ceremony?
Yeah.
I can't spend more, I can't swipe more than, I can't swipe that amount anyway.
How much can you swipe?
I know I can't do that.
Okay,
I can't justify that amount.
so,
Where they usually take the money from is, meeting expenses and
I would suggest
The
taking
supply line.
2,000 out of meeting member reimbursement, because in case
why don't you take two and two?
2,000 from member
The first
reimbursement, 2,000 for the purchasing card, and 2,000 from the supply line.
Yeah, what do you think?
I'm okay with that. What do the council members think?
Bobby? Can you repeat that? So 2,000 from the member
So
reimbursement?
yeah, I don't want to wipe out the member reimbursement. We as members really have not
Yeah,
requested much reimbursement. I don't want to put it at zero,
And
right?
also sometimes she takes it, when I need to pay for stuff, they'll take it.
So I have a question really quick. How does that work with, because I haven't run into this before, how does it work? We have to like reallocate the funds a little bit?
Yes.
Correct, because the funds get allocated, and we have time to reallocate it, right? I think
I have
the
to
deadline
tomorrow.
is tomorrow. So we allocate our funds to these separate areas, right? Member reimbursement, purchasing cards, supply line, and meeting expenses. And then once we pass the deadline, we cannot reallocate the funds. So if we have $3,000 in member reimbursement and we don't use it, that money, we cannot take out of that portion, so we lose that, right? So
Okay.
we're talking about reallocating so we can accommodate the acquisition of these tables. So this change will not, the only change that we discussed in the past that would impact the new incoming CEC, because every term there's a new budget, every year there's a new budget, right? July 1 through June 30, we get a new budget. So it's not gonna impact the next CEC, because this money will have already been used or spent or returned. We're not able to get it back the next, accumulate it to the next budget. So would any changes need to be made for the award ceremony also? So usually when we do the award ceremony, we purchase certificates, correct? A couple of
The
folders and we get some, I don't know, pencils or items that we give to the students. But I'm assuming I thought it was coming from the purchasing card, does it?
Some, depends on what I'm buying.
Where do the others come from? It's not member reimbursement,
No,
obviously.
The
Will
meeting
come as in
expenses and the
supplies.
supply line.
Okay,
is where I would
so that's what I'm saying, we could probably take it from the, item 2, 3, and 4.
No,
But part of
why
it,
would you do? I wouldn't, okay.
well, we can't take the award ceremony stuff from member reimbursement, correct?
Oh, how much? Yes, that's what I'm
You have
saying.
member reimbursements, anybody putting in for reimbursement?
Nobody's
That's why I'm
putting it.
saying take it from the
Okay.
meeting expenses, so that's my budget for the award ceremony. If
Okay.
you take it from these 2, 2, and 2 from the first 3, then you're good.
So, okay, so, yeah, so Carly's saying that she could use the 4,000 from the meeting expenses for the award ceremony.
And
And
a little
then
bit from the.
Some
supply line.
money from the supplies and
Right.
some money from the purchasing card. So what she suggests, and I agree, we take 2,000 off the member reimbursement, so we don't write that out completely, because if there are any CEC members that need something, at least we have $1,000 there. We take 2,000 from the purchasing card, which still leaves 2,300, and 2,000 from the supply line, which we still leave 2,300. So I would suggest take 2,000, like Carly's advice also. It sounds reasonable to take 2,000 from the member reimbursement, 2,000 from the purchasing card, and 2,000 from the supply line, total 6,000. Is everyone okay with that?
You have to.
Who's our budget person? Yeah,
We have a new lady named Yolanda.
no, who's our
Shirley.
Shirley, you run the budget, I just wanted to make sure you were okay with that, right?
Yes, I checked everything and I wanted to discuss about it too. I wasn't sure how much the table cost altogether, but if we could really allocate the budgets, since we haven't used the member reimbursement, I think that'll be perfect for the table. And also I mentioned to Carly that maybe we should plan out for the award ceremony. And also I suggest something for the award ceremony if there's any way that we could give the gift to student teachers in like maybe gift card form.
So
I
we're
know.
not allowed to do that.
Is there any way that we could figure it out how?
Right?
No.
We can give certificates, we can give,
Tangible items.
it has to be something that's tangible, that's purchased already. We cannot get like a gift card or gift certificate, correct?
Because I do want to put more funds on the students and teachers, like for the award ceremony. Which I don't mean that it doesn't mean that I'm against the table. It's just that my mind is more towards like giving awards to students and teachers this year after COVID. We finally decide to do it in person. So if there's any fund for the table, I think it'll be good, but also I do want to focus a little more on the award ceremony.
Okay, so if we take out the money, we still will have 2, 4, 6, we would have about 10, a little bit, we would have about a little under $10,000 for the award ceremony. I don't think we're able to use all that money from you. Is there a cap of what we can use for the award ceremony?
Always,
There's always a limitation. We can have Carly check into that.
It just depends on what you want to do.
It depends what you want to do, right? So in the past, we've issued certificates, we've given water bottles, we've given little backpacks, we've given pens, pencils. I mean, we still have some stuff in our supply room. So, like I say, I don't think it's gonna go anywhere above $5,000. Right. I mean, I don't think we can give a little bit, anything that's a little bit more pricey than that. So, I understand what you're saying, Shirley, but I think we still have enough money in the budget for that. Especially since we haven't used any of it. I don't know if we're gonna have any more member reimbursements, but I would rather it not be wiped out, because what if there are some reimbursements requested?
I wouldn't wipe everything. I think if you take a little bit from the first three.
If we take, 2,000 from each one, we're still gonna be fine. The first
When's
three.
the last time we used the money? So, okay.
Today's the last day.
March 3rd is the last day from budget modifications, which means I have to have everything in plan today and order the tables by Friday. April 3rd is the last day to place any orders, but here's the catch, Galaxy will be closed, which I've never seen this happen, but Galaxy will be closed. Galaxy is where.
Can you guys hear Carly?
It'll be closed from
Yes.
March 17th to April 3rd. So I don't know how long I have from that time to.
So instead of
orders.
giving 1,000 actually, no, you want that.
So I guess we could, at least today, we could decide on the table. We could vote for the table
Yeah, I mean, I think.
Yes.
so that we could allocate the fund.
If we allocate the funds and we vote on the budget for the tables, if it ends up that we're short, then we're gonna have to limit the number of tables, right? I mean, we could just say, look, we'll give you $6,000 for the tables, or whatever you guys, if you have any suggestions to give less, I'm open to that. We'll allocate money, and then, Carly will figure out how many tables and what the cost is.
We have to agree.
We have to agree on how much money we have to put there, because it's something that CEC has to vote on. I only suggested 6,000. I'm just, I'm open to anyone else's suggestion.
I think 6,000 is okay. I think it should cover, I think it's gonna be a little bit over 6,000 with the tax and shipping, but I think 6,000 sounds reasonable for me, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think even if it goes a little bit over, then we'll just limit the number of tables, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we okay to bring this to vote, or you want more discussing?
We don't do, honestly.
Okay. So Carly's just showing me here that on the member reimbursement, honestly, like in the past, like I've never used it. Some CEC members have used it for parking or sometimes childcare, but we've never, I don't think we have April, May, June. We have 3 more meetings, so I don't think we're gonna need more than Carly's saying, rather than 1,000, we're good with leaving 500 in there. I'm comfortable with that.
And allocate that money into the supply line where they would eventually take the money from.
Okay.
And so this is where they take the money from the supply line and do the expenses. You don't really need anything in member reimbursement because you guys honestly, mostly the CEC doesn't use.
Can you hear Carly?
So if you use the purchase card, you leave money in the purchase card, leave money in the supply line, and leave money in the meeting expenses. I wouldn't touch the meeting expenses, but that's where you want to take your money
Right,
from.
so you're suggesting we take 2,500 from member reimbursement and what? 1,750 from purchasing card and 1,750 from, I'm not good at math, from supply line, right? That will give us 6,000, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm okay with that. Do you guys understand that? So what we're
Fire
suggesting,
herself.
yes, go ahead. Who's that? Okay.
So can we just vote on it?
Yeah, yeah. we
If
can
somebody
vote.
opposes it, let's hear the reason.
Well, because we have to allocate how much money goes in each section, so we just can't, so I'm just trying to figure out the numbers here. So I'm suggesting that we leave $500 in the member reimbursement. Can you put the budget back up?
Oh, sorry, sure.
The budget.
I'm going.
Okay, so I'm suggesting we take 2,500 out of member reimbursement, leave 500 in there. Take 1,750 from purchasing card and 1,750 from supply line. So we have money left in those two items, and we have the 6,000.
I think that's good.
Anybody else?
We'll
sounds
be able
fair.
to, I'm sorry, we'll be able to move money around anyway later if we need to.
We won't.
We won't.
No, we can't.
Oh,
Do it today.
Tomorrow is the last day to allocate the money.
damn it, I'll move the calendar back a month.
I know. So we have money in the purchasing card, the supply line, the meeting expenses. That's fine.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's just the member reimbursement. But like I say, we have 3 months left, so I don't think, we haven't really used it. Nobody's used it. I don't think that, we'll still have $500 in there just in case. Let's
Yep.
assume, somebody comes in and they need money for parking, or they need for childcare services because they needed a babysitter to come in. Or, I bought cookies for the meeting or something and I want to be reimbursed. That's where that would fall. I don't use it personally. I don't think anyone else on the council's used it. So are we okay to take this up for a vote?
Yes,
Yes.
So we're gonna vote on two things. We're gonna vote on whether or not we will provide new tables to our meeting room. In the amount of $6,000 totaling shipping and handling, and then we have to vote on reallocating our budget.
Can I start?
Yep.
Ready?
So the first vote, which Carly will go through the roll call, is whether or not we will fund the new tables for the meeting.
Joseph Di Benedetto.
I say yes.
Okay. Anne Marie Knable. Emery. Is she here?
she left.
Okay.
She had said
Joseph-
something, but we
Joseph-
still have to borrow.
Joseph Chow.
Yes,
Sorry. Win Yu.
Yes.
Sana Tayeb.
Yes.
Sung Young Lee.
Yes.
And Michelle Frederick. Is she here?
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes.
Okay. Eden Rubenstein.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 members. We have more than quorum, so that is now, congratulations. We have new tables, hopefully. Holly's going to look into it, but you have to do some work on Friday, right? Okay, so that was approved and voted on. The next thing is the reallocation of the budget, which means we will take $2,500 out of member reimbursement, 1,725, what was it, 1,750 out of purchasing card,
Say that again. I'm sorry. 1,750 from purchasing card.
and 1,750 from supply line. Add a new line for
Furniture.
furniture, and put that $6,000 in that line.
Okay.
So now we're gonna have member reimbursement $500,
Yes.
and then we'll have the balance there.
Okay. Ready?
Yes,
Joseph Di Benedetto.
agree?
Anne Marie Knable. Joseph Chow.
agree.
Win Yu.
Agree.
Sana Tayeb.
Agree.
Sung Young Lee.
Agree.
Michelle Frederick.
Agree.
Eden Rubenstein.
Agree.
Okay.
Okay, wonderful. So that was it, and that was done. Thank you, council members. So I just want, so I hope that Carly or district office relays it to the community once we get it done. And they understand that because we're not the only ones using the office and the tables, but I'd like it known that we did a good deed. Okay, thank you.
Are you gonna vote on if you're going to have, you have to vote on, sorry, you have to vote on the date for next month, and you have to vote also if you're gonna do But we're serving.
Okay, so Carl is reminding me, and I'm not sure if there's everybody in the public here. It's 9:45. Okay, so Carl is reminding me, and I reminded her that our next meeting in April is the first day of Passover. So at sundown, I don't think those that observe are able to attend our meeting. So I don't know if that as a meeting date is an appropriate date.
I would not be able to attend, I'll be
Right,
honest.
You know, so I don't want to exclude any group whatsoever from our public meeting. So I know in the beginning of the year, we voted that we would have April, was it April 5th? April, which is a Wednesday. Now, if we do it the following week, that's the week that everyone is off for the Passover Easter vacation. So I don't know if that's gonna be a good date.
The week after it is the ELA exam.
And the week after is the ELA exam. So what I would suggest is maybe we make the meeting date not on a Wednesday, but maybe the Tuesday before the 5th, April 4th. Does anyone have a problem with that?
Do you have the date in front of you, Joe?
So I have the calendar in front of me, and I'm seeing that April 5th, Wednesday, is the first
Passover.
day of Passover. So at sundown, it's observed, right?
Yeah, what would the other alternate
So the
date be
alternate,
though that you're talking about?
again, so the following week would not work because that's when schools are closed. That's the 12th. The 19th wouldn't work because that's when they have the state exam. So, and if we do the following week, it's the week before our May meeting. So I'm suggesting that we do the April CEC meeting on Tuesday, April 4th, as opposed to Wednesday, April 5th.
Wendy said she's.
That would be fine.
Are you guys okay with the Tuesday evening CEC? Works for Sana? Okay, so we have to take a vote on it, unless we have other suggestions. Are there any other suggestions other than the 4th? Okay, so let's take a vote on whether we can change our meeting date for April to April 4th on Tuesday.
Joseph Di Benedetto.
I agree.
Anne Marie. Joseph Chow.
Agree.
Win Yu.
Agree.
Sana Tayeb.
Agree.
Sung Young Lee.
Agree.
Michelle Frederick. Michelle.
Agreed.
And Eden Rubenstein.
Agree.
Okay, so then our April meeting will be held on Tuesday, April 4th. Then we have May, we will talk about the agenda for April and May. But next we have to vote on whether you guys want to do an award ceremony. It's our very last meeting for the term. We typically do it with a celebration, and we would have to vote on whether or not we want to have our June meeting date as our award ceremony. And then we could talk about it in the next month, the location and the details, and maybe setting up a subcommittee. I guess we're gonna have to take a vote if we're in favor of doing an award ceremony on our June meeting, which would be June 12th. Is that? June. Our June meeting date would be June 7th.
No, that date for some reason is June 6th. The April meeting.
We changed it?
Yeah.
How do we change it?
June 6th.
Okay, so our next meeting, the June meeting date would be on Tuesday, June 6th. For some reason, we didn't pick the 7th. Maybe, I don't remember if it was proms or whatnot, but so our last meeting would be on Tuesday, June 6th. So what I'm asking is that we take a vote on whether you guys want to do an award ceremony that evening.
Ready?
Yes,
Joseph Di Benedetto.
absolutely, yes.
Joseph Chow.
Yes.
Win Yu.
Yes, I agree.
Sana Tayeb,
I agree.
Sonia Lee,
I agree.
Michelle Frederick,
Agree.
Eden Rubenstein.
Agree.
Okay.
Do we need to vote if we're doing it in person? Because we did it both time remotely, remember? COVID, during the pandemic.
Oh, I was assuming we were talking in.
So this is for in person. Is everybody okay with that? Maybe we should have clarified. The award ceremony would be in person.
Yes.
Everyone's in agreement?
That's fine.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So between now and our April meeting, we should think about, can you, Superintendent, maybe give us some suggestions of where we can have the award ceremony?
Yeah, wherever you wanna have it, it's.
So I would think that time of year, we need air conditioning, right? In the past, we did it IS 25.
25 has it,
Does 185 have it?
no.
No,
I think that's on the docket for them, but I don't think they don't have it yet.
right, okay,
Every time we have 107, we were melting.
yes, okay. So, I mean, we'll look into it next month, but, that's something we should start planning. The location of the award ceremony, we typically do it in an auditorium. We've done it in the past at IS 25. It's a good school, it's big, it has air conditioning, right?
Yeah. I'm trying to think some of the newer buildings, I know 21 is one. That's far up.
So we can discuss it at our next meeting.
Well, you know,
right?
we'll
We
get
have
all
time.
the schools that have air conditioning.
We'll get the schools with the air conditions for April, and then maybe we can set up a subcommittee in April, if anybody wants to be part of a subcommittee, in terms of how to plan this award ceremony. Usually we have like, we ask the schools to provide, 2 students who have shown community service or outstanding community service to the. And then we usually pick 1 teacher. We have the Joe Kessler Award, and if you have any other suggestions, we could talk about it in April. Is everyone okay with that?
Yep, that's fine.
Sounds good.
I know we're down to 16 participants, right? So the April meeting, Louis, is going to be on Tuesday, April 4th. So we have 16 participants left. Our room is vacant here. Is there anyone on the list for public speaking? Perfect. So we kind of did our business meeting with our public meeting. Veronica?
You accept individuals from the public for the subcommittee?
So it's always going to be a public meeting, but it's something from the council members conduct. But if you have any suggestions, Veronica, I would ask that you provide them, and we'll definitely consider that. If we do it, we'll talk about it more at our April meeting. If we have a subcommittee meeting, it'll be a public meeting. Right?
Yeah.
It has to be. Thank you, Veronica. Okay, so at that point, it's now 5 to 10. Do I have any motions to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Who was that from?
Eden.
Eden, thank you, Eden. I'll second the motion,
Okay.
and I look forward to seeing you all on Tuesday, April 4th. Thank you. Oh, Carly
Thank
will
you.
send us an email if we have any problems with the purchase of the tables. We'll be in touch.
Okay.
All right,
Take care.
thank you.
Everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Have a good
Appreciate
night.
it.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, guys. Bye.
Carly, I know I have it somewhere, but I don't know if you have that list.
That HC list?
You don't have it?
I have no idea where that list is.
Yeah.